Welcome to Rev Up Your Business with Hilda Gann, the podcast for small to medium-sized business owners, entrepreneurs, and HR professionals. Each week, we share tips, strategies, and trends on how you can build success in your business. I share my expertise as a people-centric leader in work culture and human resources. My guests share their expertise in human resources, marketing, sales, finance, IT, leadership, and the multiple facets that you need to take care of your business. If you love to learn and want to find out how you can rev up your business, join us. Welcome to another episode of Rev Up Your Business. Today, my guest is Brad Fitzsimmons. He says that there are no schools for small businesses. And today our focus is talking about small businesses, what they need to go through to build that business and not have enough time. And Brad has a way of thinking and helping business owners to find the freedom through the business that they're creating. I'd like to introduce you to Brad and have him tell a little bit more of what we're going to be talking about today. So welcome, Brad. Thanks for joining me today.
Thank you very much for having me, Hilda. It's a great opportunity to be here. I'm excited.
I know we met earlier this year and we talked about the fact that most business owners think, okay, I'm in a business, I'm just going to work this and then I'll retire and have no thought to selling. So tell us a little bit more about what your company does, how you came about it.
Yeah, so I started my first company when I was 13 years old, and I sold it when I was 18, and when I went off to university. And the thing that I did really well there was I recognized that I had clients that needed me. And when I went away to university, most of them were senior citizens, and they needed somebody to cut their grass and shovel their driveway. It was just a little business, but it generated about $300 a month when I was in high school and that sort of thing. So it worked out pretty well for me. And then when it came for me to go to university, I didn't want to leave them high and dry. And so I said, okay, well, I could just leave it, or I could find somebody who would take these contracts over. And so I effectively sold that little business without any legal work or anything else to a kid in the neighborhood for $1,000, and off we went. And that that was great because the clients really appreciated it. And the lesson I learned there is the reason that you sell your business is not for you, for the owner. It's actually for your clients oftentimes. And if the bigger your business is, the more it's for your employees as well. It's funny enough, though, I didn't necessarily do a great job in my second business, which I started when I was in my early 20s at university at St. Mary's University in Halifax, and I was playing hockey down there. And that was a sports management business, and I took that business global. But because of the scale of the business, I didn't apply the same principles to my business at that time. I became the business. I was the business. And the reality is, I didn't go to small business school because there is no small business school out there. And so I was just running it on instinct. And so as a result, I didn't know that I should be creating value in my business. I didn't know that it was up to me as the business owner. There's no boss that's going to make my business valuable and that's going to make sure that I'm not overwhelming myself and spending too much time. And so I was in 37 countries traveling around the world, and I was the business, and we had all kinds of great opportunities. We became a web streaming company out of it 3 years before YouTube. And so why I do what I do now, I had a nice exit out of that business, but it could have been much better if I had built the business differently. And I wasn't the business. And what I like to say is, if I'm too valuable, or if my clients are too valuable to their business, then their business has no value, or it significantly reduces that value. And so now what I do is I teach people how to use their business to create freedom. And that's sort of a trick, right? We try to sell people on maturing their business. That's an internal terminology we use because people have children and they understand, your 2-year-old can't necessarily tie their shoes, right? And so they could understand, okay, I want to do that. And I'm really focused on Canada because in Canada, it's really unique. Living in 37 countries around the world, Canadian business owners are very unique in the way they run their business. They really run their business like it's their baby. And they talk about it like it's their baby. And they'll even say, my business is my baby.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the problem is that it's really unhealthy for your business to stay a baby forever. And so what we do is we, instead of trying to sell them on maturing their business, which people don't all get, or scaling their business, people don't get that, or maybe they don't want to scale their business. So instead, what we do now, and that's why the company's named Purpose Driven Freedom, we want them to use their business to create freedom. And that's something that everybody wants, right? And if they don't want that, then they're not a client of mine, right? If they want to work 100 hours a week, that's their choice. I respect people that do that, but if they don't have a desire or a willingness to change the way things are going, then I really can't help them. The people that I want to work with are people that have an aspiration to maybe spend especially more time with their family. You see a lot of business owners who run businesses where they're they say that they're running their business for their family, but when we look at how they spend their time, their business is causing them to detach from their family. And oftentimes the conversation I have to have with a business owner is, listen, I know the way you started this was for your family, but you're now working 80 hours a week. You can keep going that way if that's what you want to do. But you got to stop lying to yourself and saying it's for your family, because your family wants to spend time with you. As an example, family is the most common one. And that really hits home with them, right? And what my clients see is, and the biggest pats on the back that I get are from the spouses, right? We have a program called 30-30-30-300 where we want our clients within 30 months, we want to get them to working under 30 hours a week, and we want them taking 30 consecutive days holidays annually. And what that means is that the family now gets to reconnect. They get to take a holiday. And when that happens, the wife or the husband comes to me and says, this is amazing, not right away, but they might be able to take a 7 or 10-day holiday, right? And they may not have taken a holiday in 5 years or ever. And then the children, I often get to hear from the kids, my dad doesn't talk on the phone anymore when I'm in the car with him because he recognizes I'm working enough and I'm building my business totally differently now. And the analogy we use is most people run their business like they're driving a car in downtown Toronto. They know how to do that, but they don't enjoy the experience. And what we do is we teach them how to sail a boat on the ocean. They don't know how to do that, but what we do is we surround them with everybody that they need in order to sail that boat on the ocean. And all they have to do is steer. And that allows them to take a step back and run their business in a better way. And the beautiful part of that is the trick in there is that by doing that, it's a bit counterintuitive. Most business owners would think, well, I need to work really hard and the more hours I work, the more revenue I have. But actually what you're doing is you're increasing your revenue, but you're reducing or eliminating the actual value of your business, because you can't sell your business if you are the business.
Right.
I don't care what industry you're in, it's really challenging to do that.
So let's just capture some of this, because my listeners are saying, wow, that's really makes sense. And let them internalize some of what you said. And what I heard is, first of all, if you are the business, if you're doing everything in the business, then when you go to sell the business, if you're not there, there is no business. And I think that's sometimes a hard concept for people to understand. But you also mentioned, if you're doing 80 hours a week and you're not spending time with your family, originally many of us start a business because we want the freedom to pick our hours, to do what we want. And when you're working 80 hours and doing everything, you don't have that freedom. And so I love some of the things that you said in terms of, you know, they wanted to do it for the family, but now what they've done is isolated themselves from the family because they're driven to make this money for the family, but they miss out on those years. You know, I can still remember the first time we took a vacation, and but we were calling in every day, right, just to make sure everybody was okay. And then when we finally went to Europe, you can't call in every day, and we knew that we had arrived. We had trusted our staff, we had empowered our staff to do things for us. And the last thing I want to mention is the analogies that you have. You know, the driving a car, we do it, we know how to do it, but do we love doing it? No. But I love the analogy of the boat, because the boat has much more freedom than rush hour traffic. You know? But the choice word is, now you have this freedom, you see this beautiful boat, you're driving it wherever you want, but you have to steer it, because if you steer it in the wrong direction, you may be going backwards. And teaching people to have that freedom and to learn how to trust others on your boat, to team, and to steer that boat in that right direction. So I wanted the listeners to say, I get it, you know, and that's me. I want more freedom. And maybe I am trying to be all things to all people. You had an interesting stat in terms of the number of businesses that actually sell their business versus just, you know, retire and walk away and shut the door. Can you share that with the listeners and viewers?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's living in 37 countries around the world. What I very quickly realized is that Canada is very different. And so my business is at this point entirely focused on Canada. Until we fix what's going on here in Canada, I'm not doing anything anywhere else. I don't take on foreign clients or anything else, because it really is a problem here in Canada. So the world average for small business owners that sell their business is 14.2%. It's not huge, right? Like, as
Okay.
it stands, selling business, it doesn't happen to everybody. The US is 16.9%, also not huge in comparison. So there's still, in the US, there's still 83% of those businesses that aren't selling. But Canada is 1.7%. And
That's
this goes
amazing.
back to, yeah, this goes back to the way that Canadians see their business. There's almost shame in Canada when somebody sells their business. Like, and I think part of it is we are so loyal and loyal to our own businesses and loyal to other people that we see selling our business as selfish. And that's the lesson I learned when I was 18 years old. Was the reason you sell your business, it's not for me necessarily. Yes, I'm going to get a financial benefit, and the new lifetime capital gains exemption increase from the Canadian budget is great. It went up by $400,000. That means, just like your house, you can sell your business completely tax free. So the first $1.25 million is totally tax free. You walk away from it entirely. And that is just money that goes into your jeans, and that sets you up for more freedom, right? Which is to say, you don't have to do your next thing right away. You can take some time, you can think about things. And this is back to that steering wheel analogy on the boat. What we're really saying there, and I think business owners will be excited about this. Well, they're really smart. They've come up with a great idea for a business and they're running it. Probably most Canadians, what I say is, they don't own a business, they own a job, because there's no small business school. The only schooling they've ever gotten, or the lessons learned, have been probably from initial jobs they've had. And so they run their
Yep,
business
yep.
like it's their job. And that is the lowest paying, highest working, most risky job you'll ever have, with no pension, right? And what we say to business owners is, if you have that mentality, an easy sort of flip there is to say, selling your business is your pension. that you're building the asset up. The worst thing you can do is, after 20 years of running a business, and you'd never do this with your home, is walk out the front door of your house after living there for 20 years and drop the keys in the front and just say, I'm done.
Yeah.
I'm out, and just go on. Nobody would do that. But 98.3% of Canadian small businesses do just that. And that's a major problem. So what we get the business owners doing in steering the ship is we turn them into strategists in their own business. They get to work on strategy. We use their brain, not their hands and their feet, right? We want them being part of creating the strategy of the business so that everybody else knows what the business is doing and how they're going to win. And then from there, everybody else can just do their jobs. And that opens you up to be able to hire other people. The biggest challenge a business owner has is, if I hire somebody, how do they know what I want them to do? And you're in HR, right? So you go 6 levels below that, right, Hilda? So you understand it's not like you can communicate the overall strategy of the business, but then each person needs to take that strategy and run with it in their own job. And you have to give them autonomy and the ability to fail forward in order to execute on what they're doing. And that allows the business owners to bubble up and really just be strategic in thinking about their business.
A lot of business owners don't necessarily have experience with managing people, thinking strategically. Some people have. They've risen up the corporate ladder, so they know about mission, vision, and values. They know about, performance evaluations. They understand these concepts, but there is a lot more to it. And I have done podcasts and talk about it, about shifting your mindset from a lone wolf to a CEO mentality. And a CEO mentality thinks strategically, leads, but doesn't micromanage, leads, telling people what to do next. And so there is this shift. A lone wolf is a person, could be a lone wolf was solopreneur, or they could be a lone wolf mentality with 5 people. But he thinks that person is managing each person one-on-one, guiding them very closely, supervising, making sure everything's done. That is not a recipe for success. A recipe for success is to allow people to use their strengths to help build the business. So you find a person that's really strong in marketing, really strong in connecting people in marketing and sales and human resources and finance, etc., to help you build that, but you don't micromanage them. And I want to share, I went to the Disney Institute and did a training program, and I found it really helpful. And they were sharing anecdotes of how they operationalize their business. And instead of telling people what to do, if this happens, you do this. If this happens, you do this. And have a decision tree so you know exactly. They empowered their employees at all levels. 1, safety first. You think it's the clients. Number 1, safety first. Number 2, client experience. And the example I want to give is the people who, they call them all associates, right? So there's an associate who cleans the environment. And a little baby or a little toddler was getting an ice cream outside the store. And they licked the cone and the ice cream fell to the ground. So what happened? Safety first, customer experience second. The person swept up the ice cream and took care of that. Then he went into the store and he came out with another ice cream cone for the child.
Yep.
He didn't need to go ask for permission. He didn't need to say, hey, I got a kid outside. Do you want to see that truly is a kid? The person who was scooping out the ice cream trusted him. He didn't have to fill out a form. And this was empowering people at all levels to use their brain to do stuff. Creating processes that help independence and fostering, a participative approach to building the business and running the business.
Yeah, what I like to say is that that products make money, but systems make a fortune, right? And so when you have those systems in place, then everybody can just use their common sense. Once they do, like, great systems can't save great people can't save bad systems, but bad systems can destroy great people.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so on the business owner, right? And this is, if you're running a job, then you don't think you're responsible for systems. You think you're responsible for sales or for delivery or operations. And the reality is, who else is that? If you're the business owner, you have major responsibilities. One day, you have to exit out of this business, whether you like it or not. If you're an incorporated business or a sole proprietor or whatever the case is, one day, every business owner ever has an exit, just like death and taxes and exit. An exit comes in 4 forms: bankruptcy, a sale. Ideally, that's what we're shooting for. But most Canadian business owners, when you talk about retiring in their business, what they're talking about, what they're really doing is they're saying, I'm going to dissolve my business one day.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what we see on a daily basis, when I just go in to buy a pizza, if I ask the business owner what they're doing, they'll say, oh, we're just going to close the business. I say, well, what do you mean by that? Oh, well, I don't know. We're just going to stop doing it. And I said, well, you can't quit your business. So that job mentality is still there. I'm going to quit my business. That's not the way it works.
Yeah. Yeah.
You have a business. When you wrap that business up, what we say is, if you've been around for 10 years, to dissolve your business is going to cost you between $50,000 and $100,000 to dissolve your business. So you're going to exit out of this business. Your cash flow is no longer going to be there anymore, and you're going to get a tax bill, and you're going to get bills from your accountants, your lawyers, everybody else, as well as closing off all your vendor agreements and leases and all those types of things. So when they find that out, unfortunately, most Canadian business owners discover these costs when it's too late. They're already in the end zone. And now they're finding out they have these costs and they don't have cash flow. So guess where that money comes from? It comes from their savings, the money that they may have saved in an RRSP or something like that, right? And that's a really tough lesson to learn. And so we get to share that on a daily basis with people that I meet on the street. And we know, like, for me, it doesn't matter to me if everybody becomes a client of ours, right?
Yeah.
What matters to me, our big goal is we want 20% of Canadian small businesses selling, so be one of the tops in the world by 2050. That's where we want to get to. And so doing things like this podcast with you, it doesn't matter if you're a client of mine. Go talk to your accountant and say, like, what's my exit strategy?
Yeah.
What's my succession plan for what I'm doing?
It's really interesting because when my husband and I had our company, people used to, by the 5th year, we were approaching our 5th year and we were going to have a celebration because we had enough staff and we booked a hotel, and people started coming to us asking us if we wanted to sell our business and sharing from a negative perspective. Okay, do you have headaches like, your IT infrastructure? Are your staff getting the right kind of education? Do you have a controller on board? And we said, yes, we have all of these things. And I think they were stymied because I don't think they expected a company that size to have developed all these things and not be complaining about, I wish I had a whatever. And I don't know what we consciously thought about selling from day one. I think we just wanted to start the journey. But you get to a point where you need to think about the journey. And I think you've given a lot of food for thought today for people who are thinking, I'm just going to walk away, and there's a cost associated even with that. So people need to think about, what is my exit strategy and how do I do it, big or small? How do I transition myself from what I'm doing now? And a lot of people that I talk to are thinking, well, I'm looking for residual income, so that they technically don't walk away, they just die kind of thing. But that has headaches in itself. What kind of advice do you have for people who have started to hear our conversation today and suddenly realize, maybe I need to talk to somebody about my exit strategy. Even if not just for selling, at least talk to somebody about an exit strategy. What do you suggest, Brad? You or others, just give us some advice in general.
So in other places in the world, it's funny, when I first started the company in 2017, and we were using this maturity concept, we also used a tagline for our business that was start with exit. And in Canada, this was not received well.
No.
When I do mentoring in other places in the world, start with exit is what we use. So when we do mentoring in Southeast Asia, I don't do that anymore, but we used to work with a lot of innovation centers. We would use start with exit, and it was incredibly well received. And this speaks more to the loyalty that Canadians have to their baby, their business.
Mm.
Because I go to a networking event of small business owners and I say, well, what we do is we help people start with exit. I will be standing in that room by myself very quickly because people don't want to have that conversation because they think it's disloyal. And I think that they think that if they do that, then they're putting their foot forward towards selling their business. The mentality we want to give them in that boat mentality is this is the natural life cycle of your business. From wherever you are in your business, if you're 2, 3, 5, 10, 15 years into your business, understand that the natural life cycle of your business is one day you're going to exit out of your business. And what we see a lot of Canadian small business owners do is die in their business. And what they don't understand is that there's a deemed disposition with CRA when the owner dies. And so you're going to get a bill from CRA on the estimated value of your business, or your wife or your husband is going to get a bill from CRA within 3 months of your death. And then you're going to have a bill owing in 30 days after that. Or if you become disabled, or you're not able to function anymore in the business, that creates a whole waft of other problems. So what we want to do is say to them, and we have a program that's called 7-Minute Succession just to deal with this. So we realized very quickly, we're selling freedom to our business owners. There's a catchment of people who are far enough along in their business where they don't want to invest in it anymore, right? Like they're done. They see the writing on the wall and they want to be done. Maybe they don't enjoy what they're doing anymore. And so we have this succession part of our business that says, and we call it a succession strategy as opposed to a succession plan, because one of the things we find, particularly in Canada, is people don't love business planning, but strategy is something they love, right? Like strategy, talking about where you're going to win, how you're going to win, absolutely, those types of things. Business owners, it gives them focus. They stop sort of looking at all the different things that they can do, and they get really focused on that. And so when we start talking about succession with business owners, we just want to create a nice, simple off ramp for them. And so what we say is that anybody has 7 minutes can go on, and this becomes part of their estate. So their significant other, unfortunately, if they die in their business right now, and any of your listeners that are sitting there that are business owners, they need to really know this. The awfulness of what would happen if you died in your business, your significant other, your kids are already dealing with that loss. You do not want to give them something else that they then have to worry about, and it's because you didn't have a succession strategy. I have even financial planners where we do the 7-minute succession with them. Like, this is their job, to plan financially. And when they do the 7-minute succession, it just asks you a bunch of questions. What happens if you become incapacitated? What happens if you die? You know, who can bind the business legally? And they may not have all those answers, but they go find them. And then if that tragedy does happen, you're ready to handle that. So that's how we handle that, because with Canadian small business owners, I get that they don't want to spend a lot of time working on their business because they're really focused on working in the business. We haven't given everybody that total freedom yet of 30 hours a week, and 30 consecutive hours fully disconnected. We're going to get there. right? But in the meantime, what we want them to do is at least do the minimums, right? So that they can sleep well at night,
Yeah.
knowing that they've put these in place. And literally, your significant other gets that document, and it says it gets added to your will, and this is what's going to happen with the business. And then if that tragedy does happen, we're ready, right? Like we at least have enough there, and then they can just deal with the actual loss itself, which is important, right? I mean, once again, if you're a business owner, you're incorporated or you're on a sole proprietorship, you have responsibilities. If you're a corporation, you're a separate legal entity, just like driving the speed limit in your car or the consequences of going faster than that you have to deal with. That's fine. I get a speeding ticket. I go and I pay the ticket. Your corporation, if you die in your business, somebody else has to deal with this. And so we don't want that to happen. So and then we do start them with a succession strategy just so that they understand
Yeah.
what's going on. But 5-minute succession handles 85% of the work. So literally in 7 minutes, you're 7 minutes away from having a strategy in place so that if the worst case scenario happens, you're good.
Start with exit, because I think as Canadians, we want to do good, and we don't want to be thought of as, I'm starting this business because I want to make money and I want to leave, right? And start with exit
Yeah.
sounds like that. And you can see in some countries where people want to make money, a lot of money, and so how do I get there so I can sell? So some people do have that mindset, but perhaps us as Canadians philosophically, that sounds very greedy. That's very self-purposeful versus do good. And so maybe this is why the marketing doesn't work here in Canada. Maybe it just needs some tweaking. But I think what you've just shared in the last few minutes about succession strategy and the cost, if we don't think about it consciously, is something that all of us as business owners, whether we want to sell a business or we don't want to sell a business, we need to talk to somebody, if not you. That's amazing. Thank you for sharing that.
The interesting part, so that 1.7% of Canadian small businesses that sell, that extrapolates out into succession as well. And particularly, so 80% of our economy in Canada is small business and what I call U10s, right? Like under 10 employees. So if there's anybody on your that's listening right now and they're like, this doesn't really apply to me. If you have a business of any kind, everything that we're talking about applies to you, right? It absolutely does. If you're a boomer or a zoomer, understand this. 80% of our economy is small business. 80% of those are boomers and zoomers, and 80% of those don't have a succession plan. So what we're seeing now is, we're going to see the great wealth transfer of money, but we're probably going to start to see the great small business failure in Canada. And with the downward pressure of huge companies like Amazon and Walmart, like it's becoming harder and harder for small businesses to be in the market. And the last thing we want to do to our economy is lose that big entrepreneurial spirit, because Canada is a world leader. In case people don't know this, Canada is a good place to do business. I've lived in 37 countries around the world, and Canada is a great place to do business. If you're not incorporated, get incorporated. The benefits, I hear from accountants and lawyers all the time that, they don't need to be incorporated because they're not generating more than $100,000 a year. I have something on my website that it continues to grow, 25 reasons why you should be incorporated. The least of which is that you have a certain level of tax, right? There's so many different things there that rationales and reasons why being incorporated in Canada, you get to pay yourself first, right? Whereas otherwise you're paying everybody else, and then you're paying yourself, and you're paying the government as well. So it is one of the really beautiful benefits of what we have. And that's why I do like to talk about that lifetime capital gains exemption, because if I meet 100 business owners, 98 of them don't have a clue what the lifetime capital gains exemption is. And I have my associates that are wealth managers at the large banks. And when I talk about the things that I talk to them about, they say, "Oh, well, why wouldn't they set up a family trust? And why wouldn't they do this? And why wouldn't they do that? The lifetime capital gains exemption, take advantage of that." I say to them, guys, this is a company that's generating $500,000 a year where their wife is doing the bookkeeping, right? They're not ready to have that conversation yet. And so my job is to make this all really digestible. And the reason I know this is I made all these mistakes, right? Like I don't want other people to make those same mistakes. You don't need to do it. Yes, I have had successes. But at the end of the day, I still have the energy to be out there as a proud Canadian saying, Canadian business owners, there's this huge opportunity out there for you where you can create freedom for yourself today. Like I have a client that I started working with 40 days ago, and they hadn't taken a holiday in 5 years, and they're on holiday right now. Like that's how quickly this happens, because their philosophy for running their business changes dramatically, and all of a sudden they become strategic, and they start to surround themselves with specialists, really smart people who know how to do all these different things that they kind of know how to do. I like to say, I know enough in all areas of business just to be dangerous, and so I myself make sure that if I'm the smartest person in the room, that's my fault.
And I think that gets back to steering. You know enough to know where to steer. You don't have to be the one doing it, but to steer. So I know the person that you're speaking of, and what I was marveling at is his mind shift from that lone wolf to the CEO mindset. He is, through your guidance, he's ready now to think like a CEO and to surround himself with strong individuals in his organization and as associates to help him build. So it's wonderful when a person can find that freedom, as you say. I'm sure we can talk all day. How do people, what's up for you next, and how do people get a hold of you?
Yeah, so probably the best thing to do, if any of this stuff has hit home with you, with any of your listeners, what we do on our webpage, we give away the 7-minute succession for free. Remember, I want 20% of Canadian small businesses to sell by 2050, right? And so we got a big hill to climb there. And so that's why, that part, that will just change their mindset. And then from there, we can start to have bigger conversations about if they're ready for a philosophical change to the way they want to run their business. And the best person to ask this question to is your significant other or your kids, right? Like that's my ideal clients. About 95% of my clients are females, because there's a lot more female CEOs out there now, and that's a good thing, a really good thing. But there's different pressures on them, and so they seem to gravitate really well to this type of thought process. Whereas I think there's kind of a bit of an old boys mentality that is, hey, listen, like you don't eat lunch and you don't sleep much and you drink lots of coffee and you work your butt off and then the cash flow is going to be good. That's one way to do it, but the only people that you're servicing then are going to be your customers, and you're really doing a disservice to your family. And by going through this process, you're not being disloyal to your customers. You're actually being really loyal to them, because guess what? If you die in your business or you become incapacitated in your business, your customers rely on you. And so if you can't function anymore, not having that succession means that they are going to suffer. So when you sell your business, you're actually doing it for your customers, and you're going to hand that business over really nicely to all your customers. But it starts with, at least what we see is the easiest, most accessible way to access us, is start with that 7-minute succession. I'd like every Canadian business owner to have that succession in place. And if they do that, they're already thinking strategically. then we can do the other stuff. And the stuff that we do with our clients, it's easy. It's not complicated. It's not a 27-page business plan. It's a one-page strategy that's simple. Like, how do we win where we're sure we can win? Like and then that will get you focused. So that's probably the easiest way to reach out. And then, of course, they can contact you and contact me, I suppose. And I can share my email, which is brad@purposedrivenfreedom.com. I meet with everybody, as Hilda knows. I love having these conversations. There's no requirement to do business with me. If you have a conversation with me and you go down the road and work with your accountant and do some things, or you create your own freedom, I love it. I want to hear those stories too. This isn't about my business becoming the biggest thing since sliced bread. This is about Canadians running their business differently. And my purpose is, I've learned these lessons at a very young age. And I still have the energy to say, hey guys, there's a different way to do this. And I owe it to my country and to the small business owners that I just love, right? I love these people out there taking these insane risks, right? Or they see it as an insane risk, or other their friends might see it as an insane risk. I love those people so much because that is our economy, right? Like, that is what makes Canada great. I just need them to think a little bit more strategically about their whole life.
Yes.
Why they get up in the morning, what they want to do when they're working on a daily basis. Inside, we call it their professional purpose, and then drive that through into what we call their legacy enterprise purpose. We don't even call small businesses anymore inside of Purpose Driven Freedom. All of our clients call them a legacy enterprise. I don't want them to think small. There's no reason you're 80% of the economy. You're bigger than the term small business. You're really, really important. And every small business owner should really be proud of themselves and know that they can actually affect change by just a small philosophical change.
Brad, you've given a wealth of knowledge that many small business owners haven't really thought of. And I think the biggest one is the succession planning. And the second biggest one is, you started this company because you wanted some freedom. And for many, they are finding that it's not quite the freedom that they wanted. And what you're suggesting is that you've created a formula that may help them. And Brad has given you his contact information. He's giving you that free download or webinar on the 7-minute succession plan. Take him up on his offer. So thank you, Brad, for joining me today and really helping small business owners understand another layer to their business that they probably hadn't even thought of.
Well, thank you, Hilda, for doing your podcast and giving me a venue to do this. I love doing these types of things. So if anybody wants me to talk about at their podcast or anything like that, in case you can't tell, I'm very passionate about business owners in Canada, and there's a very simple message in here that there's things that you can do. And the more people that understand that faster, that's my focus right now. I'm just laser focused on small business owners doing a better job for themselves, their business, and their customers and their family.
And your mission, I can hear your passion, and I was going to say that. I hear your passion and your mission of wanting us as Canadian business owners to sell. 20% of us as small business owners should sell our business. And by 2050, that's your goal. So let's all try to help make that happen. You've had me thinking about what I'm going to do as part of my legacy enterprise. So thank you for joining me. Thank you to my viewers and my listeners for joining. If you love this episode, give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe. There are so many episodes that help you as business owners, as HR professionals, build better businesses. Thanks a lot. Have a great day. Thank you for tuning in to Rev Up Your Business with Hilda Gann. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe to our podcast on YouTube and Spotify to stay up to date with all of our latest episodes. For more HR tips, strategies, and to learn how you can create a people-centric workplace, visit our website at peoplebrightconsulting.com.